April 8th, during mid-morning, Kilo and Margarita are having a conversation and Kilo pops up the question, Margarita, by the way, uko na degree? Margarita, do you have a degree? Margarita answers in the affirmative. She is a communication graduate with quite some years of experience in the media and related fields. Mom is looking for people who have done undergrad in communication with 4 years of experience for a referral in Pink Farm. So I'll share your number, Kilo explains. Thank you. I'll be waiting for the said call, responds Margarita joyfully. Looking for a job is a hassle in itself, and of course, such kind of news is heartwarming. Fast forward. On the morning of 9th April, Margarita receives a call, of course, from a high-ranking person. An inquiry is made if Margarita indeed has completed her undergrad and the years of experience, etc. Margarita explains herself over the phone, and a leave-out note is, I'm sending an email so that you can send your CV. Because of the urgency of the matter and the referral from an important person in society, Margarita checks if her CV is up to date and without hesitation sends it to the company email she received. 30 minutes later, Margarita gets a call and a Truecaller app displays the name Chagio from Pink Company. A warm male voice is on the other end and inquires about a few things, including the person who referred Margarita, and gladly Margarita explains. Red flag number 1. Mr. Chagio on the phone referred to Margarita as Margaret, but since it wasn't a big deal in the physical, because sometimes people misspell or mispronounce names, she corrected the caller. My name is Margarita, not Margaret. The conversation goes on and on for close to 3 minutes without Margarita smelling a rat. You might wonder what the 3 minutes entailed. Mr. Chagio, the regional director in quotes, inquired who referred Margarita. It was a phone interview. Margarita, why do you want to leave your current job? You know your referee is a very good friend of mine. We've known each other for a while. The conversation goes on, and Margarita explains why she did not send the CV the day before as she was asked to. Mr. Chagio calmly assures her all is well, and he promises to talk to the CEO and get back to her. When you are expecting an important call, you will gaze at your phone after every single second so that you don't miss that defining call, and for Margarita, this was a career-defining call. Mr. Chagio calls back after 20 minutes and Margarita misses the call. Courtesy demands that when you miss a call, then it's prudent to call back. Mr. Chagio receives the call with a reply in low tone. I am in a board meeting. Let me call you back. Relieved that she might not have missed the chance, Margarita patiently waits for as asked. A few minutes later, Mr. Chagio calls back and confirms to Margarita that the board members have approved, so the next step is for her to send her credentials. Margarita, without hesitation, sends educational certificates which Mr. Chagio confirmed having received. He goes on to say that because of the urgency of the matter, Margarita should send statutory documents and within an hour. She gasped, and before she could explain herself, he quipped, You didn't know you could need these documents when a job opportunity pops up? He sounds like a concerned parent, right? Red flag number 2. The other tell sign that Margarita overlooked is how in a span of 2 hours, things were falling into place in the physical realm, but again, falling apart in the spiritual realm. Why were the documents needed with such urgency? The few listed scenarios that need urgency include when someone is injured or experiencing a medical crisis, natural disasters, fire incidents, safety threats, work deadlines, and even personal crises, so that there is no further potential harm. Sometimes in life, you're caught unaware that you don't have all the documents needed because an opportunity has not presented itself. Unfortunately, Margarita has no documents that are required to proceed to the next step. Don't worry, I can refer you to someone at WXY headquarters who can facilitate the documents in the shortest time possible so that you cannot miss this opportunity, Mr. Chagio assures her. Margarita is given a number of one Mr. Mgonde at counter number 3 at WXY headquarters, who is said to have been briefed of her seeking this help. Red flag number 3. In normal timing, the documents take close to a month to be processed. But because of the urgency of the matter, Mr. Mgondi responds to Margarita that a certain amount of money is needed to speed up the process in an hour. He continues to say that she could also reward him with a token for the service that he will be offering, and they casually laughed about it. A note to remember, if anything is done in haste and money is introduced as a topic of discussion, take a deep breath, a step back, and give yourself time to process the events. Also, listen to the conflicting small voices in your head. Mr. Mgondi tells Margarita, if it's Mr. Chajio who has referred you, congratulations. As you start your new job, go and shine. You know how that feels? Now, for the documents needed, you need to send the money right away, he advises. Margarita consults with a few people and they send the money. A few minutes later, Mr. Mgondi sends documents to Margarita, and in return, Margarita forwards the documents to the regional director in quotes, Mr. Chajio. Up to this point, things seem to go smoothly. However, 30 minutes later to the deadline, Mr. Mgondi calls Margarita, claiming that he is going to refund half of the money because the signatories of the other remaining documents want a token for them to sign. Margarita tells him to call Mr. Chajio and let him know of the present situation. And the guy responds by saying, I fear him, but let me try talking to him and I'll get back to you. Shortly, Mr. Chajio calls back to let Margarita know that he has spoken to Mr. Mgondi, but she should not accept anything that concerns a refund because the documents are needed urgently and he is only facilitating this because of the person that referred Margarita and the close relationship they have. This statement was made with a commanding voice of a person in managerial position who needs things done ASAP. He ends the call by saying, just do what you can do, but don't accept a refund. Margarita has a conversation with herself. You have already started the process. The person who referred to you is a well-respected person. This job is a career growth, and she concludes to top up the amount. Margarita sends the requested amount. Mr. Mgondi sends the remaining documents except one, and without hesitation, Margarita inquires and she is told to be patient, and patience pays. After close of business, all the documents were sent to the regional director in quotes. Usually, Margarita doesn't transact official business past office hours, but this was a bit exceptional. Mr. Chajio calls and informs her that all things are in place, so what is remaining is a schedule for an interview, which could incorporate an aptitude test and later a rigorous training for the position. He continues to say how he will guide her through the process. At this point, he makes a suggestion to Margarita that to be on the safe side because there are other people to go through the process, and because of the relationship they have with the referee, she could opt for an interview or buy tea for the board of directors, and it will be an automatic direct recommendation. Sometimes when an individual has been searching for a job, he or she has been called to numerous interviews with no positive feedback, an optional thought lingers. What if I do things differently this time round and see the results? I have been invited for interviews to big companies, but the outcome is usually not pleasing. And this clouded Margarita's thoughts. Half convinced of the route she wants to take, she inquired of how much the directors will need, and after feedback, she requested for time to ponder about it. However, she had only a few minutes to do so. After some consultation here and there, Margarita decides to give the small token. She called and informed that she could be able to do half of what the directors had requested. On the other line, Mr. Chajio tells her to send and he will try convincing them to take the half. He pretends to be driving back to the office to speak to the CEO on the same, but he says he is not sure they will agree to take half of the money. He then says that since it's not in cash, he gives out a number, saying the guy was on standby to go and withdraw the money. He later calls and informs Margarita that he will return the money because the CEO has declined. I wish Margarita had accepted to be refunded the money. Maybe things could be different. Margarita thought of the person who had referred her, and she decided to go an extra mile again and send the remaining half. Upon receipt, he then informs Margarita that he is directing the human resource officer to send a letter. which should be signed and sent back. He sends a number instructing Margarita to write a prompt message on WhatsApp. To this point, things seem to be going on smoothly. You see, when the boss directs you to do a task, then you must oblige. Margarita sends a high text message to the number purported to be for the HRO. Let's call her Rosha, who in return sends a document that needs to be signed and sent back. Rosha sends a message to inform Margarita that she should read the document and get back to the director, Mr. Chagio. Margarita goes through the document and signs it after pressure from Mr. Chagio that the document is needed. The document was an invitation letter that Margarita had been recommended by the board of directors to work in the company, with the date of reporting and where. Margarita did notice some typing errors here and there and questioned herself why the letter had no responsibilities, amounts to be paid, key information that must be included. She thought to herself, maybe it's because it's an invitation letter, not an offer letter. Could be the reason why it has no crucial details. The letter was signed, stamped, and had the company letterhead and looked convincingly real. When Mr. Mgondi asked for full details, that is, her full names and identification number, Margarita was only making it easier for them to forge documents to make it look real. The following day was a holiday, but the director in quotes later called and informed Margarita her file will be worked on after the holiday is over. Day 1, gone. On Wednesday, Mr. Chagio calls Margarita to inform her that there is a file that she is supposed to fill and send it back immediately. She is over the moon that things are falling into place, and soon she will be permanent and pensionable employee. He inquires if Margarita has a medical insurance policy, which Margarita declines. Mr. Chagio tells Margarita that all employees in the company use a private medical company which is called Anniversary Insurance. He continues to inform Margarita that since she is not subscribed to this insurance and her file did not go through the normal process, she will need to pay some amount for processing, giving an assurance that the money will be refunded after the first month. You remember Rosha, the HRO, sends the document to Margarita. She reads through and the amount stated that is supposed to be paid in a few hours' time leaves her dumbfounded. Her eyes popped out, mouth wide open, not understanding where will she get such an amount since she had gone out of her way to pay for services the previous day. She calls to inquire what will happen if she is not able to pay as required. The response will shock you. You have to go out of your way because we are in the last stages of all this. And I'm doing this because of your referee. Today is a holiday, so this is a favor that I am doing to be working when I'm supposed to be resting. Margarita again goes out of her way since the document states that the money will be reimbursed after her first month of working in the company. However, Margarita inquires why the company couldn't pay and deduct from her first month salary. The response she got was that because the company management has not seen her, so she has to foot the bill. She sends the money to the purported HRO who confirms receipt. Have you ever heard of the saying, use money to get money? Reluctantly, she fills in the required information in the document. The purported HRO calls again after some few hours, informing Margarita that she needs to send medical report from a doctor from 2 specific hospitals. Margarita informs her to allow her some time to work on it. Remember, this is happening when the doctors are on strike. Margarita makes a few calls here and there, but remember she has a deadline to beat. Because it's a holiday, so they are doing her a favor by being in the office. And Rosha had informed her that she will be leaving by 1 p.m. East African time. Previously, Rosha had offered that she knows a doctor who could write the letter, but at a fee. Margarita got furious and called Rosha and Mr. Chagio on why they didn't tell her that she needed to pay more money on all this. Just a reminder, shortcuts are never the best. Good things take time and last long. They told her that this was the last and it's money that she would recover because the pay was good. Margarita, calm down. You don't want the pot to break at the doorstep. She comforted herself. She again pays for the doctor to write for her the report. Did I tell you that Margarita had searched through the internet and found no such name in the board of directors mentioned? Even the stamp of the human resource director did not bring such result on the management of the company website. But Margarita convinced herself that maybe the website hadn't been updated. At this point, Margarita felt she had been captured by readers, and in this case, scammers. Rosha later calls that Margarita's file is now in shape, that she only needs to relax and wait for the reporting day, which was only 2 weeks away. Margarita was wise. She didn't resign from her previous job because she had conflicting thoughts, because on one hand, things were adding up, but on the other, they seemed fishy. Fast forward. One day before reporting day, Margarita thinks of getting clarification on who will receive her when she arrives in the company premises. She decides to call Mr. Chagio, who didn't pick. Courtesy dictates that when you call someone once, especially a senior person, be patient enough for him or her to call back. 2 hours passes by and he did not return Margarita's call. Then she decides to call again, but in vain. Almost all the hair in her body got spiky. She sent a text thinking that she will get a reply. A reply she is still waiting to date. She thought to herself, since it is tomorrow, why don't I just go and I will be received at the reception? The D-Day is here. And that day it rained heavily. Cats and dogs, they say. Margarita thought to herself to take a cab because she didn't want her first day to be ruined. Dressed to the occasion, she got a cab, but traffic held her that she got there almost 9 a.m. East African time. With her documents in place, she gets to the reception and she asked to see Rosha in the HR department, but she got a rude shock. She was informed that they don't have a person named Rosha who works in that department. Then she requests to see Mr. Chagio, and the same answer was repeated, and this time round with a question from the receptionist. Who is Director Chagio? We don't know such a person. Have you ever wanted to wake up from a dream that you don't even know if it is one? Immediately, a nicely dressed light-skinned lady seated at the reception couch calls Margarita to the side to ask her of who she was looking for. She tells her that she also came looking for the same person, and the receptionist had informed her that she had been conned. Margarita narrates that she doesn't understand how she could compose herself, be calm, knowing that she had been smartly conned. Margarita and Delis now comfort each other. They try calling the people involved at intervals, but their phones were switched off, and when they would go through, they didn't pick up. Margarita tells Delis that they should get out of the reception area, not to bring any suspicion. A thought lingered that they should call the people who referred them to this job. Margarita called her referee, but she wasn't picking. Delis moved to the side to call hers, and she came back saying hers had picked and informed her to wait so that she can be able to reach Mr. Chagio. 1 hour of the two getting to understand what had happened, Margarita, with the thought of being scammed, just wanted to lay low her head. So she suggests that they take a cab home because Delis had also informed that she lived in the same area. Margarita asked Delis to call a cab, but she informs that she has no bundles, so Margarita does. They keep on talking about what had happened, and Margarita became suspicious. Could Delis be part of the scam network? Wisdom told her not to share much information with the stranger, Delis. They both shared the cab cost and parted ways. Later that day, Delis kept asking Margarita what she planned to do, but since Margarita could not trust anybody at this point, decided not to tell her of her next step. The next time she inquired if Margarita had called the scammers, Margarita told her yes, but no response. The truth is, she was lying because she did not want Delis to know much about her. You remember Kilo? He is the one who had given out Margarita's number because she was qualified for the job. He called to know how it went. Without hesitation, she told him point blank that was a scam, and she didn't want to talk about it at the moment because she was in distress. He inquired if Margarita had talked to the director who had given out the number to the other director in the scam company. She told him yes, and she had not responded. Kilo told Margarita to be patient as he tries to reach her. He later calls to inform that Margarita should talk to her, but at this point, Margarita wants Earth to swallow her whole. Distress is a bad place to be. She wasn't in a position to do all this but stay indoors and cry, knowing that she had lost much, and at this point she trusted nobody. 1 week passed as she was mourning money that she had lost. Then one morning, just before she could resume duty, because she had taken a few days off, one of her supervisors called to know how she is faring and to inform her that someone had called him looking for 2 people who had done undergraduate, and he thought the qualifications fit Margarita. Margarita inquired the name of the person, and indeed it was Mr. Chagio. So Mr. Chagio had taken his contact from Margarita's referee list in her curriculum vitae that she had sent to him earlier. Margarita immediately told him that Mr. Chagio was a con person, and she narrated her story. Later on, Margarita called Kilo to inform him of what had happened. Kilo again talked to Mom of what was unfolding. He called Mom, and later Margarita talked to Mom explaining the scenario and also wanting to know how well she knows the person she referred Margarita to. Mom advised her to report it to the police station. But Margarita first called the company through the number on their website, inquiring if they had a job opening, but they declined. She then wrote an official email with details of the numbers that had been used and the email purporting to be of the company. That email has never been replied up to date. How safe are you from the con people, the scammers? Be on the lookout.